5 seconds. Start. The learned counsel would submit that the present petition is not maintainable as there is no valid and binding agreement. In this regard, he has drawn my attention to dispute resolution clause, more specifically Article 28, which according to him stipulates that in case of any dispute, the parties can approach courts at Delhi, or alternatively they may opt to go for arbitration. The use of words may opt to settle the disputes through arbitration manifests a clear intention of the parties that the arbitration clause is optional and the parties can either choose to resolve their disputes through courts in Delhi, or they may opt for arbitration. The respondent has specifically declined to give consent to refer the disputes to arbitration. Therefore, the disputes cannot be referred to arbitration. He takes sport of this contention by relying upon Section 7 of the Act of 1996. He states, before a Section 9 petition is entertained, the court has to satisfy itself that there exists a valid and binding arbitration agreement. He relies upon the judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of Sundaram Finance Limited versus NEPC India Limited within bracket 1999. According to him, the submission of the council that effective date used in Article 24 subclause 3 to signify the start of the 5-year lock-in period must be replaced by opening date, virtually rewriting Article 24(3) of the agreement. He stated that under Recital 3, Recital 4, Recital 5 and Recital 6, read with Article 2, several services to be provided by the petitioner, such as providing professional advice regarding architecture, engineering, interior design, furnishing, etc., were to commence from the effective date, that is May 15, 2015. In this regard, he has drawn my attention to Article 2, Subclause 2 and Article 9. The respondent has paid an amount of rupees 15 lakhs as pre-opening expenses to the petitioner in accordance with this scheme of the agreement. Further, these pre-opening services were to be provided by the petitioner in consideration of the management fee promised to be paid by the owner under Article 12 starting from the opening date. Therefore, the lock-in period of 5 years would commence from the opening date. If the plea of the counsel is accepted, then it implies that there is no lock-in for the period. He denies the submission of the council that the respondent never contested the petitioner's interpretation as set out in the petitioner's email. According to him, it was the petitioner's own understanding that the lock-in period was ending on May 14, 2020 and had not yet expired by April 4, 2020. Otherwise, faced with potential termination, the petitioner would have specifically asserted at this stage that the lock-in period ought to commence from the opening date and not from May 15, 2015. The petitioner did not do so at all. He also highlights the fact that the submission of Mr. Dutt that breach must occur after the lock-in period is over as per the council as flawed because by that analogy the lock-in period would stand extended till July 2025. That implies that the lock-in period is 10 years from effective date and 8 years from opening date. This is not and cannot be the intention of the parties when the lock-in period is of only 5 years. Without prejudice and in any event, final counsel submitted an alleged negative covenant ought not to be enforced after the effective date of the termination notice. In this regard, he has relied upon the judgment in the case of Royal Orchid Hotels Limited versus Modern Hotels Private Limited. Learned counsel submitted that the petitioner was only managing and operating the hotel of the respondent as an agent and licensee under the agreement. However, the petitioner does not have possession of the hotel at all. This, according to him, is clear from Recital 3, Recital 4, Recital 5, and Recital 6, read with Article 2, that the petitioner is merely an agent and licensee of the respondent. He also refers to Article 2 subclause 1, Article 2 subclause 2 and Article 2 subclause 5, which provides that the petitioner is only an agent of the respondent and only a hotel management expert. That apart, Article 5 subclause 2 clarifies that all the employees of the hotel are the employees of the owner, that is the respondent. It is only the general manager of the hotel who is the employee of the petitioner, although all his costs, expenses, and remuneration is reimbursed by the respondent. Under Article 7, the entire working capital of the hotel is provided by the respondent. Similarly, under Article 20, subclause 1, the respondent has the absolute right to sell, mortgage, lease, or create any other encumbrance on the hotel as long as the petitioner's ability to manage and operate the hotel is not impaired in any way. He relied upon the various case judgments. Stop.